All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to the September 13th, 2021 meeting of the Lowell Historic Board. The first item on our public hearing agenda is the Downtown Lowell Historic District mural standards. And I'll read from the introduction that's in the agenda. In order to provide better guidance for applicants and property owners in the Downtown Lowell Historic District, a mural policy has been developed over the past several months that also supplements the city's recently passed mural ordinance. The policy is an effort to provide additional guidance for those proposing murals in historic areas where a higher degree of sensitivity to historic structures and context is necessary. The policy is important as it sets parameters and addresses process, approach, location, scale, installation methods, materials, and removal, among other items. The policy is similar to other board policies on awnings and temporary public art that expands upon design standards, provides clarification, and more in-depth detail and specifics. The draft mural policy has been posted publicly along with the agenda for this hearing, and hopefully folks who are here to comment have had a chance to review it. This is the opportunity for us to hear public comment on the proposed policy before it is formally voted upon by the board. So with that, I will now take any public comment in favor of the Downtown Lowell Historic District mural standards. And if you'd like to speak, you can come to the podium and please introduce yourself with your name and address. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the mural standards policy? Asking again, anyone here to speak in favor? A third request for public comment in favor? Hearing none, we'll move on to any public comment in opposition to the mural policy. Second request for any public comment in opposition to the standards? And finally, a third request for public comment. Any comment on Zoom, Steve? Anyone raising hands? Okay. Well, with that, I'll open it up to board discussion.
I have no comments other than I'm ready to vote on it. I think this is the 5th meeting we've discussed the policy, and I think the current policy incorporates all the concerns of the board.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
I agree. Last time we had a good discussion, and I think we came to a good point.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for the board to adopt the Downtown Lowell Historic District mural standards as they've been presented on numerous occasions.
Okay.
I second that motion.
Okay. Thank you, Elsie. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. We have a consent vote. Thank you. With that, we will now move on to the second item on the public hearing agenda. This item is DLHD-22-05, 167 Dutton Street, for an application for a historic permit in the Downtown Lowell Historic District by Project Learn for installation of a mural pursuant to the Lowell Historic District Act. If the applicant would like to step forward and present their proposal.
Good evening. Thanks. My name is Elsie Nunn, Executive Director of Project Learn, and thank you, Historic Board, for hosting us today for this project. I'm really pleased to introduce a coalition of individuals that have been advocating for Art Up murals in downtown Lowell. Dozens of residents and local organizations have come forward to support the effort, and we have collectively determined some shared goals for 2 murals this year to honor local history, celebrate diverse communities, and engage our youth. So these murals are something we aim to do in collaboration with the city and the Cultural Affairs Office and the new mural policy, as well as, of course, the Historic Board, all of you. Your mission to preserve historic architecture and cultural legacies was a really important factor in our planning process. And during our walkthroughs with your team, we learned earlier this year and selected 2 walls to propose today. One is at 207 Market Street, the Athenian Corner, a very rugged wall that could use some love, and 167 Dutton Street, a side wall facing Market Street behind the former flour mill space, which is already painted red and will not impact the original brickwork. CTI has been very supportive of this effort, and Carl Howell, Chief Program Officer, will say a few words. And our shared goal is to honor the history of Mechanics Hall. We're also working with Refuge Lowell so that local youth can participate in aspects of the creative process, and it's an opportunity to see the community process and project in culmination and realized. There were many people involved in our process today, and I'd like to welcome a few of our colleagues to share a bit more about why this project is important. Then we'll introduce Beyond Walls to discuss the artist selection as needed, and they're also experts to help on logistics and answer your questions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Carl Howell from CTI.
Good evening. As you said, I'm Carl Howell, Chief Program Officer of Community Teamwork. We own the property at 167 Dutton Street, which is known as Mechanics Hall and has currently been renamed the Youth Opportunity Center. I'm just going to share just kind of our vision. So for over 170 years, Mechanics Hall, which is known as the Youth Opportunity Center, has been, over 170 years ago, the center had an escaped slave, Nathaniel Booth, opened a barbershop on the first floor. During that time that Booth's barbershop opened, he and another escaped slave, Edwin Moore, would use the building to organize abolitionist activities, making Mechanics Hall a hub for anti-slavery events during the Civil War. The site has recently been recognized as part of the Network to Freedom program by the National Parks Service in its role for the Underground Railroad. For over 40 years, this site has been the space for community resources serving the most needy under the mission of community teamwork. Most recently, the last 11 years, it has been a destination for youth, another marginalized community where this historic building has been a hub for transformative activities. Our goal is for a mural that will capture the rich and uplifting history of this building and what it continues to offer the community. We wish to use the art as a method to honor and display the history this location has served for the diverse community. In one way or another, the building has been a central component for supporting people in the community that do not have a platform to be heard. This mural will embody those who have been underrepresented and acknowledge their rich culture. Thank you.
And I believe we have Ronald Lores joining us virtually. Ronald is representing Cultural Organization of Lowell and Middlesex Community College. Ronald, are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ronald. I have been a part of the Lowell artist community for the past 7 years, and I live and I have my art studio at Western Avenue Studios and Lofts. I am also an art instructor at Middlesex Community College, and I chair the Creative Development Committee for the Cultural Organization of Lowell. I am very excited to be part of this project and to be working with such a passionate and experienced coalition of partners and artists. As an artist and an educator, I am an advocate and a beneficiary of art's transformative power to inspire and enrich individual lives and communities. The response we have received for this mural proposal has been phenomenal. The range of styles, cultural diversity, and depth of artistic experience we saw from the 95 applicants fills me with hope and excitement for our city. The finalists are all artists with a strong track record of socially conscious, inspirational, and technically groundbreaking murals. These murals will contribute to Lowell's identity as an artistic hub and help bring contemporary public arts to the forefront, as well as energize and inspire our diverse community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ronald. And 2 students from Lowell High, Sophia and Aniset, would like to say a few words.
Hello, I am Aniset Bonet. I am a junior at Lowell High School. Thank you. Hello, I am Aniset Bonet. I am a junior at Lowell High School. I worked with Project Learn and Refuge Lowell as a Commons to Career intern. I worked with the mural project, and I think that murals should be installed in these two places because it brings more life to the city. I think that we need more artists in this city to have, I don't know how to put this correctly. I think that these murals are really going to help with the city life. And I feel like everybody who's going to see them and who's going to walk past them, it's really going to improve their day. If they're having a bad day, if they're having a good day, no matter what. I think these murals are going to be perfect, even if people from Lowell aren't making them. I think that the stories that these people have will really fit with Lowell's story. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sophia Mirabal. I'm a junior at Lowell High School, and I worked with Project Learn and Refuge Lowell this summer to develop this mural project as a commencement to career intern. I developed a community survey and gathered responses from a variety of people with various backgrounds in Lowell, and understood their interests and what they would like to see in murals. And I think that these artists should be allowed to paint these murals in Lowell because murals can contain strong themes, and these themes, when placed in environments, they can enlighten communities and inspire people to pursue such themes. And it's in our power to ensure what we can influence other people with, and I think that's very important.
And lastly, before we open it to Beyond Walls, Bianca Morrow from BRM Productions is a local expert who would be assisting with logistics.
I don't know about local expert, but my name is Bianca Morrow. I'm with BRM Production Management. I have worked with or met most of you in the last decade or so, and I share in Ronald's excitement. This is so exciting. And what's before you as a committee right now is this incredible opportunity that has been well thought out. It is being chaired by a committee of experts. And like Ronald said, there is so much passion and so much talent coming to the table right now that now is the time, now that you've approved this and also very well thought out mural policy, now is the time that this committee gets to open the door to so much passion, dedication, and big, meaningful art in this city that it will do nothing except help bring more people to Lowell. It will help our economy, it will help our tourism, and it will help give our arts community more of the recognition that it deserves alongside our big technical colleges. So, as an expert, I am an expert, but as an expert, I am going to be right there along the way with them. I've done 20 murals myself as my company in the last 3 years. We did 15 last month in the city of Boston. We know how to do it right. We know how to help them do it right. And Beyond Walls has done hundreds. And the buck stops at painting large walls with them. And it is an honor to work together. And like I said, I'm so excited that this is the beginning of something incredible in this city. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Martin, and I'm the chair of Project Learn. I just wanted to give a little bit of a history of our organization. We're in our 8th year as a organization, as a nonprofit that raises funds both through private citizens and corporations and grants to support the public schools. And to date, we've raised over $10 million that have supported the schools with early college programs, with a number of initiatives like for summer programs for kids, Idea Camp, things to that nature that have been very well received. And I think our organization is a group of folks that are serious about what we do. And I think this opportunity this evening to support us in this endeavor is an important part of our mission. We've focused on art. We've had support from the private sector to raise funds to accomplish these goals. And I believe we're serious about what we do. And I think the speakers this evening demonstrate that this is something we really think is a critical part of the growth of our downtown. And our offices in the downtown, we're going to continue to be in the downtown with our new offices in the next couple of months. We're committed to the downtown, which is connected to the high school, community college, the health center, and all of our downtown citizens. So we really believe strongly that this is an excellent proposal. It's a start. We hope at some point we can take this to scale throughout the city. And if we feel strongly that if the Historic Board supports this, it should be a lot easier going about our business with neighborhood organizations that would say, because this is a quality board that wants excellence and connections to the history of Lowell, that other community members would support this. So thank you for consideration. And I'd like to turn it over to our friend Beyond Walls.
Hi, my name is Al Wilson, and I'm the founder and CEO of Beyond Walls. I hope you can all hear me well. It's an honor to be in front of the group tonight. Beyond Walls Incorporated in 2017. We've done a number of non-large scale art projects, including the underlighting of 3 bridges that cut through the heart of downtown Lynn. More recently, during COVID times, we've done COVID urban design response, hand washing stations, outdoor dining setups. But we're joining this call tonight to share about our large scale art and our background in installing that. We've done work in 4 cities, well over 100 extremely large scale pieces of art. And I'm joined tonight with the rest of the team, and hopefully they can intro themselves now. Phil, are you on?
I am. My name is Philip Fagan, Chief Operating Officer at Beyond Walls. And I'd certainly like to just say thank you for having us. I appreciate it very much.
And Charlotte.
Hi, everybody. My name is Charlotte. I'm also with Beyond Walls, and I have the pleasure tonight of sharing the artists that were selected from a artist review panel that reviewed over 95 applications of artists, both local, national, and international. And they were reviewed for not only the quality and presentation of their past work, but for their potential to impact the community of Lowell based on the values of this coalition that has formed around this initiative. I just must say it's been an absolute pleasure to work with the Lowell community and to see the passion and the interest for street art. That is really where our passion is, and to see a lot of those values overlap has just been exceptional, and we look forward to helping to move this forward. So without further ado, I'd like to share my screen. Can you all see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry, just 1 second. Okay, and so I'm presenting 4 artists here tonight, all exceptional, highly technical artists that have a great deal of experience on enormous walls, but also have a great interest in communities. They paint all over the world, but what they paint is a reflection of the spaces that they go to paint, and that is a great deal of how they came to be of the favorite of that review panel. And so the first artist that I'm sharing today is Angoria. And I loved what Carl had to say about the history of his building and Mechanics Hall, and how that was really rooted in abolitionist activity that took place in what was a barber shop 170 years ago. And Angoria is known for his iconic roller imagery, which is a very familiar scene with all Latinx cultures. the people that we have connected with and the feedback that we've heard about his work is that they see their family in their work. They'll say, oh, wow, that's my sister. You know, that's my niece. That's how my mother did this. And often what comes from this hair exercise is typically taking place inside, and it is this artist's prerogative to pull that out into the streets and make it very, very well known as representing a cultural aspect, but also to share kind of that camaraderie and connection that happens within barbershops. And he finds that to be really a central point of communities at times, and he likes to be able to bring that. And so just sharing a little bit more of his work. He also has a great interest in Afro and Black culture, and he likes to spend time with the community as he begins to paint so that he can really understand, as he's coming from the Dominican Republic, how he can best represent the community that he wants to work in. So a little bit more of his work, and very clear in what expectations would be in working with this artist. The second artist that we would like to share today is David Zayas, who comes from Puerto Rico and is also just a master of his skill and technique and what he does. He says that society is the main theme of his work, us and human beings, and you really do feel that with his work. He draws a great deal of symbolism into what he paints. And so the birds and the wood and the different structures, the gate here, it all has meaning to him. Which is very, very stunning and really draws from his Puerto Rican culture. And with a huge Puerto Rican population in Lowell, bringing representation to this community is really important to him and to us. And we are excited for the opportunity for him to be able to express that. He's also largely on the museum track at this time. And so to be able to work with him in the city would be, I think it would be a treat for all of us. The third artist that I would like to present today goes by Seth. He is from Peru, and he typically paints children, and he is inspired by their innocence and purity. But you will notice that he brings a different kind of approach. It's not your typical portrait. There's always pieces of it that are also symbolic and evocative. So for example, in this piece here with the car, he painted that in Flint, Michigan, where of course the car industry and culture is very, very prominent to their history and has formed them. And so this is his way of helping to represent that while bringing the youth into it. I can show you a few other murals. He uses all spray paint, very, very high quality spray paint that we use here at Beyond Walls. But his technical skill is really unparalleled in many ways. And he's also, very, very interesting person and a pleasure to work with. And the last artist that we have to present today is Sophie Tuttle, who some of you, I hope, may know there in Lowell. She did work and live in Lowell this past year and recently relocated back to Medford. Her work is throughout New England and beyond. She has actually painted in many different countries as well. And her focus is on environmentalism and protecting our natural world, but also drawing awareness to what makes a space unique in its local wildlife, but also how we as a community can help protect that. And then there's a connection to how that helps us as a society better work together and create a nice, safe space for us to all live together. So this is an enormous piece that she did in Alston on Western Ave with Zone 3. Absolutely stunning. I can't believe she did this in the short amount of time that she did. And there are many others. This is one that she did in East Boston, where actually the numbers on the left are correlating to the rise in sea level that would be expected if things stay on that aim. So there is a piece of the awareness that Sophie brings, but she has proven to be incredibly skilled in executing large-scale work, and it's wonderful to be able to work with somebody that has such a connection to Lowell as well. And so those are the artists that I wanted to present today, and I just wanted to clarify what next steps would be for us if the vote is to be going through well. We would love to be able to work on these murals for this year, and of course our season is limited due to weather. So if we are given the chance, we are ready to contract muralists starting tomorrow. And we are ready to begin executing before the weather becomes too cold in order to do that. And we are committed to working very closely with Cultural Affairs to follow each step of the mural ordinance to ensure that we're doing this in a way that supports bringing more artwork to Lowell and encourages doing this in a way that is mindful and inclusive, representative, and community driven. Thank you.
Is that the end of the applicant's presentation? Okay. Steve, do you have the images of the facade of 167 Dutton available to bring up on the screen for everyone to look at?
We can bring that up, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy to bring
Or if someone
that
could
up
share
as
the
well.
screen. I think it would be helpful for the benefit of the board and for the public as well, is if the applicant could walk through what you have envisioned for this location at the moment. I know that you don't have an artist identified, you don't have an actual design to present tonight, but we are, as I understand, looking at this proposed location. So I'd like to hear a little more from the applicant about where on this facade you're considering a mural and other logistical aspects that you have planned at the moment that you could share.
Sure.
I'm happy to jump in here if that's helpful.
Sure.
Okay, very good. This wall we are particularly interested in, one, because we hope that it preserves the architecture as it's already painted and that it wouldn't create too much of an impact on the historical integrity of that building by bringing on paint that is of the highest quality. And I did list out in the application different paints that we do use, but it is exterior paint, oftentimes focused for concrete and masonry surfaces. It is sealed in a way that doesn't affect the look and feel of it, but then protects it from UV, salt, snow, weather, climate issues, mold, if that were to be a problem. And so for this wall, our intention is to really focus on that left panel that goes up behind that metal sculpture and would likely only be the vertical. And we wouldn't do necessarily the right side where the ivy is shown here. That's for a few reasons. One is an accessibility issue, but two is also the composition and how that impact really will come across. We would intend to do the whole height of that building, and there is a very interesting viewpoint of the top section of that panel that is visible in many different sections of the city, which is lovely. I will say we do not have an exact sketch, and we were not prepared today to come for an exact sketch because in order to contract artists, we do need the permission in order to do this, which hopefully we can talk about today. But upon receiving the approval to do this, we would be working with Cultural Affairs and understanding what that means in order to provide what it would be. The artist that we have in mind for this is Angoria. And as Carl mentioned, the content of his work really lends itself to the historical nature and what that building has come to represent and be important for in Lowell. And because he is typically painting female women with their rollers, that is what to expect from this artist. And it is to be expected that he would paint a Black Afro woman in order to directly connect with the abolitionist activity that took place here in this building. Feel free, Al, Phil, LG, and others to jump in on expectations for this wall.
Can I speak to object to this?
We're in the part of the agenda where the applicant is presenting their proposal to the board, and then after they're done with their presentation, we will then accept public comment in favor and in opposition. So we'll take comments at that point. Thank you. Does the applicant wish to expand any further on what's being proposed? Okay, if not, I will now open the agenda up to anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this proposal.
Should we show the other wall, or?
From a procedural standpoint, we were just considering the 167 Dutton Street location at this point. We'll complete public comment and board discussion before we move on to the other location. Thank you. So again, does anyone in the audience, either here in the room or on Zoom, wish to speak in favor of this proposal? Hearing none. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to this proposal? Can you please approach the podium and introduce yourself and your address?
Hello, Historic Board. Can you hear me? My name is Mary Hart. I live at 200 Market Street in downtown Lowell. I've been a Lowell resident for almost 10 years. And I'd like to speak regarding the proposed mural on the CTI building located at 167 Dutton Street, but also adjacent to the Gates Block building at 307 Market Street. My name is Mary Hart. I am an artist and educator and have been a tenant in Gates Block Studios for 7 years. I live in downtown Lowell. I'm an artist, active in the Arts League of Lowell, which is housed at 307 Market, and have facilitated art and cultural events in Lowell for the past 8 years. Numerous events, numerous places, numerous times. I am a graphic designer who teaches visual literacy and design at Middlesex Community College. In addition, I initiated and developed the public garden, the urban green space, which is called the Gates Block Garden, which is immediately in front of the proposed mural at 167. With the help of many volunteers and the support of Nick Saris and the Arts League, we have developed a previous blasted out space into a lovely garden that serves as a green oasis for the neighborhood. The garden is open to everyone. It's accessible. It has a ramp to get into the gallery so that ADA compliance, and it's a lovely, wonderful space. We have nurtured it for 6 years. I'm not here to object to murals in general. I love murals. I'm an artist. I just came back from looking at the seawall installation in Boston that Bianca talked about. I just have an objection to the location of this mural. It is right in the middle of the garden. It is right in a space that already has 2 murals. If you didn't see it on the photograph, it's because it was cropped out. There is a 40-foot wide by 30-foot high mural that is on the side of 307 Market Street, which is the Gates Block building and home of the Arts League of Lowell. The space is small, and we already have another set of murals on the wall of the flour mill, which are faux windows, which were painted by artist Dan Rocha. So now we're talking about a small space that already is home to 2 murals, and you want to add a third. Adding another mural will create visual clutter. I know about visual clutter because I teach graphic design. It will be exactly next to the mural that's hanging on the Gates Block building. It will be right up against it. And this will create, I think, a disturbance to the peace and solace of our garden. Our garden is open to all. We don't keep people out. But it doesn't need a big wonkin' mural smack from the top to the bottom. I don't know how many feet, 60 feet. It will dwarf what's in the garden. It will make it look puny. And I don't think it will be an enhancement to that space, which is already elaborated with a mural that exists and painting on the wall. A filigree fence that our landlord kindly put up, and a different look than a mural demands. Access for installing murals will be limited by the existing garden fences and beds. It is hard to imagine doing this project without disturbing the plantings in the garden. which have been carefully nurtured for 5 years. And believe me, I hauled water to water those plants for the first 2 years because we had no outside water. So they have been carefully tended. The garden is a community space. And finally, before initiating any representational art in this space, care should be taken to represent the ethos of Lowell, not someplace else. Have local artists been solicited for ideas? Have local artists, aside from Sophie, whose work I know and respect as beautiful, been chosen? This mural will automatically be associated with the Arts League of Lowell, which is an association of 200 local artists. And input should be sought from the artists whose abutting studios and all members as to the content, style, and execution of the mural, because it's going to be associated with the Arts League. It's right there next door to us. And how will it be when people come and say, oh, I love the mural. Which of you artists did that? Now, I know that doing this scale of mural is outside the realm of most artists in Lowell right now, with a few exceptions. But if the mural that's already hanging in our space is any indication, it's certainly possible to make digital murals that are temporary for 5 to 6 years. They stay up, use a local artist to do it, and represent something that's here. This is not the sort of endeavor that benefits from haste. It is very distressing to see the haste with which everybody wants to get going on this without even considering the abutters, without even considering the people who walk into that building every day, who tend the garden outside, who happen to be artists themselves. Care and planning, and most of all, involvement from local artists is needed. Involvement and consideration. We can't help but feel that we're the little David against the Goliath of all these people who are gathered here to say what a great project this is. The artwork is great. I've seen all of those artists in different locations all over the world. I look at murals. But this is not all over the world right now. This is a garden in Lowell that's part of the Lowell community, that's part of the Lowell artist community, and I can't help but feel this is being shoved down our throats by people who don't really care about us. And I'm sorry to take a position against what obviously is a well-thought-of idea, but I think it should be a well-thought-of idea placed somewhere else. Respectfully, I would like to ask you to stop the rush and consider how this mural fits into the fabric of our community and whether it's worth potentially destroying a lot of hard work by people in that garden space to get it up. And I invite you to come over and see the garden. It's a beautiful little space, and we put our heart and soul into it. So thank you very much. I'm sorry to get emotional, but I sometimes feel like everybody's stacked against the little guy who wants to just have a say in things and not have something foisted upon us. And please look, because there are 2 murals in that space already. Now, they're not world-class murals, but they're murals. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Does anyone else here wish to speak in opposition to this proposal? Sir.
Everson, 269 Dutton Street. I'm not here to speak in opposition necessarily. I just want to represent the abutter, Nick Saris, who owns the other half of that block, the Gates Block building, the garden, and the former flour mill building. And I was speaking with him earlier today about this project, and I told him that I would carry forth his opinion, which matches mine, and that is we're mostly worried about the technology of getting this mural painted, if it's selected to go there, without destroying the garden without harming the fence that was installed there at Nick's great expense, actually. So I wanted to just state that it's a concern, the technology, the technicalities of getting that mural painted on that wall, which is 40 feet from the sidewalk, and how that gets done without touching the garden. And I think that's a very important thing to consider. And I would also like to state that looking at the artist proposals, I would like to see the artist proposals before an artist is selected. But I wanted to put my vote in for Sophie's work, because if you're going to put a mural there, the natural nature look of that would be much more in keeping with the garden that's already there, okay? And I do support Mary's opinion that it's getting a little mural crowded in that spot. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak in opposition to the proposal? Steve, anyone on Zoom raising their hand?
I don't see anyone raising their hand.
Okay. Well, hearing no further public comment, I will now open the agenda up for board discussion.
I have a question for Steve. The mural that overlooks the garden, is that a mural or is that a temporary poster?
It's a temporary banner that the cultural office installed several years ago that was never intended to remain for as long as it has.
Okay.
It also obscures some of the architectural feature of the building that was traced. When the building came down, it was in where the garden is. Nick Saris, we had him paint the outline that was scarred on the building. So it traces the outline and it hides a little bit of that right now.
But that's the building, the existing,
The gates.
the Mechanics Association building they're proposing. They're not proposing to obscure any architectural
No, not on
features.
that one. No, I'm talking about the gates.
And can you talk about the,
Sorry, can we look at the picture again? I think that would help.
Yes, I'm happy to pull that up. One moment.
Thank you.
sorry. So while I understand the concerns of the adjacent garden, and obviously any interaction with the garden is going to require property owner permission and access, and that's between the building owner and the property owner. I think what's important and what's in front of us is the historic significance of that specific building. And under our guidelines, which we just voted on, it's the paint, it's architectural renderings, and it's making a decision on whether or not we think it's appropriate for a mural to be on a grade B significant building. And I just think this building's already painted. I don't foresee any additional degradation to the building. I don't think it modifies blocks any architectural features. I do think, because this also does require to go back to case, there is going to have to be extensive conversations with the adjacent property owner, because if the mural is going to be required, I don't know if the applicant even knows at this point how the scaffolding will be done, if it will require property owner permission, but I don't think that's under the purview of this board, so.
Yeah, could I clarify in terms of process? So has it already gone before the other review? So that process is still to happen, and our job here is really just, as Christine said, to assess it from a historic perspective and the set of guidelines we just passed. And all of these more complicated conversations about community sharing are just really not what we're here to talk about, and not what we're experts in. We're here to talk about the historic elements.
In my understanding and talking with Roberto Day in the Cultural Affairs Office, he and I discussed both of these proposals, the one before us though presently, and our understanding is that if the Historic Board approves the location and concept, that they can then proceed with a contract with an artist. They will then submit the required materials to case under the city ordinance, and once that all passes muster, then it comes back to the board for a final sign-off under our policy. And
Right, but just to get into the procedural aspects of this again, the application is for approval of a full mural installation at this site. And obviously, given the way that the city review process has been set up and the way our mural policy has been established, we cannot sign off on a mural until we have seen the actual artist proposal, know the exact dimensions and location of it on the building, know the application methods and materials that are going to be used. So obviously, given the way that the mural solicitation process is working, you have not selected an artist and had them present an actual design for this facade, as I understand it. So we don't have the capacity to actually approve anything today with a vote, but it's my understanding that the applicant needs at least an okay from the board to proceed with the proposal for this location. And I think should be the focus of our discussion today, is to determine whether or not we feel this is an appropriate location. And then we'll get into the details of the size, the exact location. Am I incorrect in this, Steve? Okay.
That's my understanding of the process.
Okay.
I think we wrote the ordinance in a way to set a path forward, and we didn't realize that,
Contracts.
in the historic district, there is going to be a debate about what buildings are appropriate. And so I think we're doing things a little out of order, but this is not a final approval. But we are giving an okay from a historic perspective for someone to move forward, or not give an okay, depending on how others choose to vote.
Can I just ask a clarifying point for the applicant? The application materials indicate that you estimate that the mural will be 30 feet by 50 feet in size. But from what you told us today, it sounds like you intend to use the entire height of that left side building element, which to me seems like it's not 30 by 50 is a slightly different size than what this seems to be. So I just wanted to clarify that at this point, your intent is to take up the entire height from ground to the building cornice?
Yes, and not the entire width. So the dimensions may be slightly off. They might have been estimated from beyond walls.
Mm-hmm. So again, it's that vertical rectangle on the left that you're, okay. So the whole section where that metal vent is and the line of the upper floor, that would not be part of the location?
Yes, and I would
Okay.
invite our Beyond Walls friends to comment on the sizing.
I think if you want to say the elongated pillar on the left-hand side, if that was the frame of the artwork, they may not use the entire canvas, but they may use anything within that frame. So it's really once an artist has been decided and once they've been given the opportunity to add creativity to the project, that they would be able to come up with that. But they are aware of the viewpoints of the top from greater distances. So I would imagine they would focus on that as well, on being a focal point.
Mm-hmm.
So just to be clear, that doesn't mean that they would paint the entire thing, but they could potentially have that option.
You can see there's a mural up there already. Not black and white.
The temporary mural, just up to the left.
Right.
Yes.
Well, actually, could we speak to that? Is it possible for us to recommend that as part of this process, the city pursue removing that if it was always meant to be temporary and the city put it up?
I think that's outside of the scope of this board. Personally. I also just want to make it really clear, the historic board is not here to regulate what the art looks like or who the artist is. We're here to protect the buildings, the architectural significance of the buildings, and the materials used to protect the buildings. And I think it's really important that people understand that that's the role of this board, and that CASE is responsible for sort of the other details, and that's why we passed a citywide ordinance to make it clear what the process is and what we would like people to follow. And this is also a private building, and so who the private building owner chooses to engage with for public art is not really under the purview of the city or the historic board.
Mm-hmm.
Elsie?
I'd like to speak if I may. I agree with Christine, what Christine said, and also, at this moment, we have, we just approved our review standards. So at that point, I don't know if, I wanted to speak to the applicant group that you had a chance to read through it, but you have incorporated in your application some of the things that are required, like you posted your materials and such like that, and those are the things in our review that we consider when we approve. But there's some other things. There's the section on 1.3 that asks a few questions of you, and one of those questions is, how does the proposed mural respect the historic significance of the building and surrounding context? And I know you verbally stated some of that, but we're asking for a narrative, a written narrative on that. Also, what is the proposed method? You also incorporated that in your application. And what is the materials? What measures will be taken to ensure of the preservation of the building? So I know those things were stated, but as part of a formal application, as just approved here, we'd like to see you look at our guidelines, and because that's what they are to help you with your application. But I do agree with Christine that if it's a private building and the owner decides that they want to engage in something like that, and we're just here to protect the building and the integrity of the neighborhood and what that looks like. I do have a few questions of like, how are you going to get in there without running over the plants and such? I've done a lot of scaffolding in my day. So I know there are ways to do that, but I would hope that you would, in your proposal, state how you are going to do that, to protect the integrity of the garden in that space while the work is being performed. So something to consider for the community, for the greater community, and the concerns that have been raised here this evening by Mary.
If you don't mind, just for one moment, and they will add these things in writing, but to speak to the logistics of accessing that area, assuming we get through a meeting like this with a functional okay about not disturbing the face of the building itself, and the historic board being okay with the building integrity, we would then move forward with pursuing two different avenues of investigation for access. So one is a boom lift with an articulating jib. So we would put that on the street. We would reserve 2 parking spaces and a partial lane closure. We would get all the proper permits for that, including a police detail. We would have the boom on the street, and we would articulate up and over into the garden to access what we need. It would be a large lift, but it would provide access without damage. Second option we would pursue, which would ideally be less expensive, but we wouldn't know that we could do it until we were able to access the roof of that building, is a swing stage. So like you see window washers use?
Yeah.
We would do a swing stage. The swing stage would come off the top of the building. The artists would be on the swing stage. They would never touch the ground, and everything below that would be protected while they were working with tarps and drop cloths so that the paint wouldn't touch the ground below either. Those are the 2 methods that we would explore if we were given the opportunity to move forward with the R&D phase of this project.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Does anyone on the board have any concerns about the location that's being proposed at the moment? My sense is that given that that rectangle is set back from the main facade of the mechanics block, it won't compete with the significant architectural features of the building. Given the limited information that we have at the moment in terms of the size and location, I'm open to having the applicant move forward to put together a proposal with an artist for something at that location.
I agree. Do we need to make a motion or?
Well, we can't make a formal vote on the application because we don't have all the information we need to approve the full mural installation, which is what's before us. So, we can just do a sort of informal, discussion. If anyone has concerns, they can raise those concerns.
I mean, one option possibly could be moving to continue to a future historic board meeting pending the submittal to CASE.
Right.
With the materials that they require under the city ordinance. And we'll work concurrent with CASE to move this towards a future historic board meeting for the final. If that makes any sense.
Would that be sufficient to start the process of engaging artists in your process?
Does anyone from the applicant's party wish to speak to that? What we're proposing is to vote to continue the application to a future hearing. And by doing so, that is an indication that we are willing to consider a proposal for this location at 167 Dutton. That's what we're discussing.
We would appreciate that.
I just want to chime in here. We greatly appreciate the thoughtful consideration, but as to this not having the complete information, it sounds like all of the information that was requested separate from a very specific design. Is that correct in what the piece that is missing for you to make a final decision?
That's correct. The historic board will need that, as well as the city's mural policy also requires a specific design.
Right, of course, and that will go through CASE, I do believe, right? In
Correct.
which case, this becomes a question of can we move forward on this historic property? And we appreciate that there is an interest for us to move forward, and I truly don't mean to create pressure, but we are in kind of a time crunch. And I do find it a bit challenging that it is very clear what the artist that we are proposing would be painting. And it's one challenge is that he would likely be painting somebody from the local community. In which case, he can create a design for this wall, but the exact facial characteristics may shift a little bit, and I hope that the group here can understand that. However, for this wall, and I'll just go back to his work, this is what you can expect from this artist. And he will do one figure. It will be an adult woman. She will be black. She will have curlers in her hair, and she will have flora in the background. And much of the red wall will actually be retained as is, as he likes to keep the background intact. And so if the issue is that we don't have a design in place, I respectfully disagree. There is a design for this. I can't tell you exactly who it's going to be. And I will also say that it's not going to be, it's going to be an anonymous feeling of a woman, if that makes sense. Somebody that he meets that resonates with the cultural aspects of the Latinx community that he seeks to share, understanding the history of Lowell and this building and all that represents. So I hope that this can help clarify, and please don't take me pushing as a way to say that I don't respect the process that has to be taken here, but rather that there is a great deal of momentum that is happening within many, many, many community groups, and we are very open to all of the conversations that happen with that, but here is the design. I hope that helps make sense.
So just to clarify, are you saying that the artist or the actual image won't be known until the artist actually applies it to the wall, or are you saying that you're concerned about the image of the individual is not known at this moment?
The specific individual is not known at this moment, but the silhouette of the woman is known, if that makes sense. It will be a portrait. It will likely rise up towards the top and have lots of flora underneath, and that was a great interest point because it is a garden, and because that's something that we want to respect, and because he does paint leaves, and because we talked with this artist about this opportunity. So we here at Beyond Walls have an idea, a very strong idea of what to expect for this wall. And And while we don't have it on paper from the artist, I just wanted to advocate in this process and share what the expectation is for the design.
Christine?
I just want to be really careful. We shouldn't get into conversations about the design, but I understand why they want us to definitively say whether or not we're open to this wall. Because I really don't think we have any say on the design material, yes, what it looks like. I don't think that's our purview. So if they're looking for a more definitive vote from us, I'm willing to make a motion to approve this building for a mural, with the condition that there's additional review. Obviously, it goes to case, and we can work with the Lowell Historic Board Administrator to make sure it's compliant with our regulations, and should he not agree with the applicant, then it would come back to us for.
Yes, absolutely. And just to reiterate, and I appreciate that, as I mentioned, we are committed to following this processes and knowing what that would be and bringing that to case as part of the ordinance. We are just not prepared to do that at this time. And we would appreciate there to be a formal vote today, because not having a vote is essentially a no to doing this year.
I'm just trying to talk through the process for everyone here. So the way that the murals policies have been set up with the city, is that correct? A proposal with, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was my understanding there would be some sort of mock-up or at least a sketch of the design that's being proposed with all the materials and methods identified, and that would go to the city for approval to make sure it meets the city's standards. And then for projects that are taking place within the Lowell Historic Districts, then that proposal would need to go to the Lowell Historic Board for review and approval, correct? But I guess is it defined whether or not it needs to go to a public hearing for the board? Or could that potentially be an administrative approval?
Well, it's a public hearing now.
Right.
We condition a lot of things. I just think, public art is new for us. I do think Lowell's done a good job of trying to make make it the requirements clear. I just think as a board, we have to be careful about what our role is, and it should be about the building, not the art and the materials. And so I would hate us to be an impediment to a public art project because we wanted to see a mock-up of a design that we kind of already see. And I do think the citywide ordinance protects the issues of the abutters that spoke tonight. And I would hope that the applicant heard pretty clearly what their concerns are, and I would recommend a site visit before and after, and that you would put in writing that you'd be willing to fix and put back to existing conditions should anything happen. But again, that's not the purview of the historic board. That's me speaking as a planner and being a good neighbor. And I think that is something that would come up in the case review process.
So do we know what we need to know in terms of materials? Because there was a range of materials presented, and I don't feel like we've talked about that.
I'm happy to talk about materials.
Yep, the materials are in the packet that I saw.
They are in the packet. We listed out the primer that we would use specific for that type of wall, the exterior paint that we would use, as well as spray paint that is imported and meant to last and be very durable, and then the sealant that we would use. It doesn't affect the look or feel of it, but it's very, very protective for many, many years. And specific, brands and line items are provided in the packet. We have done, over 80 installations in Lynn and other communities in the area, and they are all still in very good shape years later. I will just say that.
Has there been a analysis done of the existing paint coating on that building to determine its condition, and would there be any repairs or treatment necessary to be done before you apply the new paint?
to our end at Beyond Walls, I'm not aware of the specific paint analysis that was taken. I do know that members of the board have looked at the wall, but I look to them if there are needs that would happen there. In my perspective, and just going back to the wall, the section that we are primarily talking about seems to be in very good shape as someone that looks at walls quite a bit.
One thing to note, I can pretty much be assured that that red is a Benjamin Moore standard color that's blended. It's a Gates block red. It's what Mr. Saris uses often, but it's a Benjamin Moore paint that's been applied to that side of the building.
The reason I ask is if it was determined that that paint, the paint coating that's there now is inadequate for whatever reason to, for new paint to adhere to, if there was any kind of sandblasting or any removal technique, paint removal that would be required before the mural is applied, we would, so they want to, be aware of what those techniques are being proposed, and at least have Steve review and approve those before that's undertaken, to avoid damaging the underlying brick.
I think that's something that BRM Production with Bianca's team is very experienced doing.
I don't even need to come to the mic for this, I'll just.
Yeah, go for it.
Speak for my diaphragm. I have gone to the wall, I've touched the wall, I've visually inspected the wall.
Okay.
That paint would be fine to adhere to. We would power wash it to make sure that any surface dirt or grit wasn't there, that would then, in future, be a detriment to the adhesion of that paint. But that wall, I'll echo what Charlotte said, that wall is in fantastic condition.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm leaving. I wish you would enter my remarks into the record. I can see you're going to talk about all the details and not how this fits into the space that we take up on Market Street that we've existed in for 10 years. And that makes me very sad because you're not looking at the big picture. Thank you for letting me speak.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
May I be recognized to speak in support of the proposal?
Sure. Yeah, please come forward.
Thank you. I was going to withhold my comments until after the presentation on the second proposal because I was hoping to register support for both of those. Given that the discussion seems to possibly be leading to a vote, I just wanted to make sure my comments were on the record before it happens. For the record, my name is John Drinkwater. I'm a resident at 232 Remington Street in Lowell, and once again want to register my support for this proposal. I want to thank the applicants and the coalition that has come together to bring this proposal, or these two proposals, forward for your consideration tonight. It's a great coalition of organizations, businesses, artists, students, and Beyond Walls. And I speak tonight with a real level of excitement for what these proposals could bring to the city. And I particularly want to mention my excitement that Beyond Walls is involved in this project. I think my passion and excitement about the idea of world-class mural projects in Lowell started when I went through the city of Lynn after a period of time and saw just a complete transformation in their downtown that murals had created. And it was at that time that I looked into it and I saw that it was the organization Beyond Walls that had really spurred that transformation. And when you go through there, especially if you had known what the downtown looked like before and you know what it looks like now, it's impossible to deny that it was an overwhelmingly positive transformation of that downtown. And ever since I saw it, I said, this is something that we need in the city of Lowell to bring a sense of vibrancy and a sense of place, not just to the downtown, not just to the historic district, I mean all over the city. But I think it's very important to recognize that not only is the downtown our historic district, but it's also a really important business district. It's a hub for visitors. It's really important that we bring in foot traffic and visitors to make sure we're making our downtown businesses successful. So these are two projects that just fill me with a real sense of excitement for this city and what it can mean. And particularly after seeing the proposal,
I just want to speak in particularly, the idea of the possible artist having a specialty in uplifting Afro-Latinx voices in a particular location, right on the cusp of the Acre neighborhood. I just think when you look at those images, just imagine what that would mean to so many residents of Lowell to see themselves represented in world-class public art that, to the scale and to the quality that Lowell just hasn't seen before. I think it's just important to consider, and I know you have a lot of technical aspects and rules and regulations to consider, but I do ask you to also consider what a project like that, what an image like that would mean to the residents of the city, and particularly where it's located, right at the edge of the Acre neighborhood. I think it would just be absolutely transformative. I think it would create a sense of place, and I think it would lift the spirits of so many people here in Lowell, drive visitors to the city, and just create the sense of excitement in others that I have myself. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak tonight. Thank you for your consideration of these proposals, and I hope whatever happens tonight, it'll put us on a path forward to make sure these projects can happen expeditiously. Thank you.
Thank you. I did have one additional question for the applicant. Is there going to be any proposed exterior lighting of this mural to make it visible at night, or would it just be? Okay.
So that, if you're aware, on the other side of that building, there's a mural that faces
Yes.
the ribbon.
Mhm.
We put those lights on there with that project as well. So we will replicate those same lights on that stage.
So those would be mounted on the roof and then kind of gooseneck over the top. Okay.
The period mural on the rear of the building, when that was restored and refurbished several years ago, we worked with them on those lights so that they're fairly unobtrusive. They light, they're pretty innocuous, and I think it provides decent light for that period mural.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable having that be reviewed at the administrative level of the board members. Agree. Okay. So to summarize, we have a proposal. We know the location. It could be potentially the full height of that rectangle. It could be slightly shorter, but we know the paint materials that are being proposed. We know the condition of the fabric that it's being applied to. We have a general idea of some of the logistics of how it would be undertaken. They've explained to us that the lighting that would be done. We certainly have, as Christine, you proposed, we have enough detail to potentially vote on this at this time, with potentially some administrative review of final details.
In conjunction with the case?
In conjunction with the case, correct, in the city policy.
Could you repeat that?
Sure, I was just saying that I was trying to summarize the information that we have before us prior to considering a potential vote. Just clarifying that we know the proposed location and the potential full dimension of this mural, going from ground to cornice level potentially. We know that the paint materials that are being proposed for this. We know the application methods and some of the logistics. You explained to us the lighting that would accompany this for nighttime viewing. We know the condition of the existing paint this would be applied to, and the impacts that would have on the historic fabric of the building. So I was indicating that for the board's benefit, that we potentially have enough information to vote on this if they feel comfortable in doing so.
Yeah. I feel that, most, I just want to state again what Christine stated earlier as well, is like where our authority here is pretty limited, and we are just sort of looking at most of the things you've already addressed here, whether the owner allows you to do that or not. Then we're looking at the condition of the building, and as you just stated there, Jeff, most of those things were covered. But I would feel more comfortable if, since I'm into process as well, I know like things are time is of the essence, but I would feel comfortable if the standards that we just approved were well understood by the group. There, like I stated earlier, there's a few questions in there that you mostly answered, but if you read through and understand our review process and what our scope of review is, I would feel more comfortable about that. I don't know if you did read through it all, but that is part of the process. And it's not a lengthy review process for us. Most of the things, as I said earlier, you already covered.
So, Elsie, are you referring to section 1.3 where we request a narrative?
Yep, section 1.3, and also, is this a building that, possibly had, federal historic monies given? There's things to consider like that. Like, I'm just comfortable if they have read what we just approved and as part of our process. I am not opposed to this location at all. I don't see any harm to the building in that spot. I just would feel more comfortable if you read and understood our review process before approving something.
Mm-hmm.
Or have you read through them, or like Charlotte?
So you're speaking to the applicant, Elsie. You're speaking to the applicant now, okay. Just to be
Correct,
clear.
Yeah, not you.
I personally, I am always candid and transparent. I have not read these. I did follow the protocol that was established by multiple members of your team in what would need to be prepared, and we did our best to pull it together for the September 1st, just given the timeline of everything. And I don't mean that to say that it's rushed, but rather that there are things that may have been expected that weren't shared, and therefore we were not prepared to provide today. But I do want to say that separate from federal funding and specific questions that I would like to look more into for future reference, the narrative, if that's one thing, we did try to give brief narrative for each artist.
You did it
and what they
verbally.
were selected.
Yep.
No, and even in the presentation, in the documents that we gave, sharing the history of Mechanics Hall and then why Angoria was chosen was important and was also established in, I believe, our application. Just knowing that this is a group effort and we are really trying to do this with you.
Yeah, well, and I
by
hope
no means disrespect, I'm not reading through those materials.
I don't think that at all. This is a new process for all of us too. So we're just kind of working through that, and it is a process. So I just want to, be clear to you and other board members that, next time we were reviewing things, we should, have everything on the table for us all.
Oh, absolutely. And I must say, it's been a lot of reading the ordinance, which I believe is very separate from the historic board. So that I will say.
But it's not much different. It's not much. There's just a few things in there. We're looking more at the actual structure and how do we protect those in preservation. So.
Okay. Is there a specific question that came up in the protocol that we have not addressed here today? That maybe we can address verbally?
You just answered to what measures will we taken to ensure the preservation of the existing building materials? So you talked about that. That's one of the questions that's in there. You did answer which materials. How do they relate to the concept of mural in historic context? So you did explain that in your presentation as well as verbally. So, I feel like you pretty much covered it, but I guess what I'm saying, the group as a whole, as we're moving forward, it's like to have these guidelines first approved and then, the packet.
Absolutely. No, that makes complete sense. And I appreciate you bringing that up.
But I don't oppose to the location, and I don't think it's going to, with the integrity of the area, it fits where it's at, and it's okay for the building. So that's my opinion.
All right, thank you, Elsie.
Mm-hmm.
I was just gonna say, I agree with Elsie, and I think I did make a motion, I think incorporates getting all of that in writing with administrative review, if that's what we're open to. I also will say, though, all of the policies and ordinances are online, so if anyone else is interested, everything is online and readily available to review. But yeah, it is a learning process for us, and I think anything that wasn't in packet for us to review prior to this meeting, we did learn at tonight's public hearing.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'd like to second Christine's motion that she made earlier.
okay. Any discussion of the motion before we put it up to vote? Okay.
Do we need to repeat the motion so it's clear? Or- Can you-
Put you on the spot.
I move to approve the location with the condition that the applicant obviously meet with case, but, and instead of coming back to the board with administrative approval with the historic board administrator, and should the applicant and the historic board administrator not come to a resolution, then they would come back to the full board for a decision.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
All right. Application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. We're going to take a quick break before the next public hearing item for those who need to use the
Recording
facilities.
stopped. Recording in progress.
All right, thank you everyone for allowing a brief break. We'll now move on to the next item on our public hearing agenda. Next item is DLHD-22-06, 207 Market Street, an application for a historic permit in the downtown Lowell Historic District by Project Learn for installation of a mural pursuant to the Lowell Historic District Act. Would the applicant like to come forward and present their proposal for this location? I'm inviting the applicant to come forward to present your proposal for the 207 Market Street.
Yeah, I think that the second building is 207 Market Street. I think we've talked about it. You've seen some of the different images.
Mhm.
This building presents different types of challenges since the building surface itself is rather rough. Therefore, the artist that, one of the artists who has a lot of experience in painting this type of surface is David Zayas. And so he was the artist who came forward as someone who could work with that type of building material and those distinct challenges. The building owner couldn't be here tonight, but he is in support of the work, and his approval was submitted with the proposal. Charlotte, what did I miss?
Well, first and foremost, I'm happy to share a photo of the wall so you can have a better chance to look at what we are talking about. Just one moment, please. Can you all see that? So, of course, this wall could use a little bit of love, and we feel that. And there are few artists that we even have in our network, and I like to think that we work with some of the best artists in the world who have an interest in tackling a wall like that. This isn't something that's being pushed on an artist. To be able to paint with these bricks and such falling, it takes a certain finesse. And of course, we would prime this wall in order to protect it so we're not pulling away from the brick and the mortar. And then use scissor lifts. And we are working with Teddy to be able to have access to this wall completely. And the artist would use much of the brick and preserve that brick as part of his creative process, as he has done many, many times before. And I can give an example of that. This wall is actually here in Lynn and was produced by Beyond Walls. It was a wall that we offered to prime, we offered to repair, and the artist said, no, please don't do that. I love to work with the unique architecture of this. He was passionate about the birds that were nested within there, and he actually became friends with the birds, and by the end they were eating out of his hand. It was lovely. So that is why when we're connecting with this artist who has an interest in taking something that is like this and turning it into something more like this, it seems like a wonderful opportunity to be able to bring that here to Lowell. And in addition, many of the things that we talked about in our last session still stand, but to have a understanding and purview of the Lowell community and to be able to express that through his work, his very lovely, iconic work, is our proposal for today. I'm happy to answer specific questions that I may have missed and appreciate the opportunity to present.
I have a few questions.
Actually, Elsie, we need to open up for public comment first.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Is anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Yes.
Sorry. I would just like to be registered in support of the application. John Drinkwater, 232 Remington.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Hearing none, I'll open up to anyone who wishes to.
I'm also just
Oh,
happy
Charlotte?
to reiterate. Sorry, just one more comment that comes of this is, as we're talking about a wall that may be in some transition at some point, I mean, this wall is something that we really felt that a mural could help beautify this space. So I just want to reiterate that our goal is to be improving the architecture and also to take care in doing that. So as we get to questions, if there are specifics, we're happy to address those.
Okay.
downtown resident.
Sure.
Bianca Morrow, 172 Middle Street. I've been staring at this wall for many, many, many years. The Kinetic Race used to use this lot for our machines. I consider this one of the gateways to downtown because when you turn onto Market Street, this is the first thing that you see. And as a passionate resident of downtown, I think adding something to this wall that commemorates both our history and our passion for the arts, I think would be truly exceptional. Okay.
Okay. Anyone else who wishes to speak in favor?
I'd just like to add my name to the favor in this, Bill Samaras.
Thank you. Any other comments in favor of the application? Hearing none, I'll open up to any one who wishes to speak in opposition to this proposal. Hearing none, I'll open up for board discussion.
I have a question. Isn't there a hotel planned to be attached to that wall?
Oh, well,
Is that dead? Or is that? I mean, it hasn't happened.
No, it's not dead at all. This is a conversation that we've had with the building owner many times over because he has this unique space. And I think his timeline, at first he was very interested in having something happen this fall. And so if something were to happen this fall, we said, oh, well, we need a mural up for at least 6 months, 8 months or more to make a visual impact. And so we are working very closely with him in tandem on, how, when he would have a development happen with the building. So he's working on the funding aspects of that. So it's very much an ongoing discussion, and we know that nothing would happen before spring of next year. So, so our goal was, even if this was temporary, which we're hoping that it will have a longer lifespan, but we also are sensitive to the fact that, it may be developed in a year, and so we have a beautiful year. This was also something that we were in conversation with the building owner about we really want other building owners to see these experiences and want to be invited to come forward and offer their walls. So we really worked collaboratively with him as this being kind of a showpiece starter project and a demonstration project that would help lead to further funding and further murals. If that answers the question.
Thank you. Yes, it does. Yep.
Elsie, you had some questions?
Yeah, well, that was one of them. I was thinking, okay, so are we going to scale it down, or there be a significant space between the two buildings? But as I understand it, there'll be a link between the building and the next building, correct? So I figured you knew about that, but I just was gonna ask. The second question was about, I've done a lot of brick restoration and some painting on brick, which is not necessarily good for the brick work. But so when you say the artist is sort of preserving as he goes along, do you know, like, is he like replacing some mortar like for bricks coming out, or just sort of working over that, or because to me, like, the integrity of this is not good as it is, and perhaps actually a mural being there or some sort of other application would actually help it in some way. So do you know the procedure of that? Like, you're saying, like, he likes to work on things that aren't work, but then, mortar will come out of the painting as well if it's not repaired in some fashion or primed or something beforehand. I know that from experience, so.
Right, that all makes sense, and we would work with the artist on his technique here. When I said preserve the brick, I didn't actually mean that he would be doing work to help improve the integrity of that wall, but rather to expose the brick as parts of his design. And so therefore, in working with him on priming, we'd have to be very specific to where it was primed. When it is primed, though, I do imagine that it would help create more adhesion and would create a barrier that helps keep it all in one place, which is important for us in terms of the safety of the artist and many other factors. So that's where that stands, as far as I'm aware.
The only issue with that is like, it makes it more difficult to be reversible. So if it's not repaired, then you're trying to take it off, you're pulling off more material from the building. So that's, something to consider. But if it's going to be opened up for another building attachment or something, that might not make a big difference. Anyhow, I don't know what the scale is you're proposing. I think it said it's 75 by 55. So that would be a good portion. It looks like, I did look at this on our site walk, and some of the integrity of some of it is not too bad, but there's, an awful lot of repointing there.
Yeah, and we're not putting that quite on the artist. But given that the left and the right sides are clearly more intact, I believe that's where more of the detail would go, and that there's a creative process that the artist would have to go through to deal with brick that is that rugged. And to be honest, I completely understand that it's very rugged.
Definitely.
Like rugged is,
That's all. I was just wondering if what your definition of preservation was different. Like you're saying preserve it as is. My definition, I think, preserve, okay, as is, but.
Right. No, Elsie, I have to remind myself I'm talking to a historic board. Preservation has a different definition.
Yeah, okay.
but one thing to note on the proposed new construction there is that entire facade is covered by the new construction, along with numerous hallway penetrations from the Putnam building into the new construction. So in the end, there'll be no visibility of this elevation left whatsoever.
So the whole surface of this, like from corner to corner, it's all going to be gone?
For the most part, yes.
Yeah, well, 75 feet, so 55.
So just to clarify with the applicant, is the intent to use the entire facade for the mural? Or allow the artist to use the entire facade?
The intent is to allow the artist to use the entire facade as his canvas, knowing that certain areas brick will be showing through.
I feel like we're in sort of a weird situation here because we okayed all of this wall being covered up, essentially, by new construction. So we're sort of, in one version of reality, this wall doesn't exist anymore, and we approved that. In the other version of reality, what if that construction never happens, and we approve painting on raw surface, which I think this is, right, unpainted brick, which we just said is not out of our guidelines. So I'm not really sure how to handle this, like, kind of odd situation.
Right. I mean, my sense is that, yes, that there is a proposal to construct a major addition, and it's a project that we've reviewed and approved. But we also have to, I think, review this kind of in a vacuum in a way, and assuming that there's a chance that that project may never go forward, and whatever is treatment is applied to this wall, it could be here for 20, 30 years potentially. We can't just assume it's going to be gone in 6 months.
We can, because we have tax financing agreements with the property owner that sort of bounds them to certain things by certain dates, and at this point, that has not been taken back.
Okay.
If that helps the board make a decision about the wall happening there.
Okay, that does help. Thank you.
And in talking with the property owner / developer recently, because I always check in and how's the project coming and so forth, he's still in the process of lining up financing, and he's fully intending to move forward with this within a year or so, if not less.
It's also a fantastic location for infill development, so I think even if this project doesn't work out, there will be some project So I lean towards your initial, that we effectively have said this wall doesn't exist.
Right. Right, because as you noted, or that, you know, in our new policy, we state that, you know, for one, visual evidence on this exterior walls indicating the location of historic roof lines from structures that once stood on the adjacent lots. Murals cannot obscure those. So there's potential for the artist's design to obscure the shadow of the gable roof and the rear wall of the original, I think it was a church that was there, Steve? Right.
Yeah.
And we also have language that the application of paint directly upon historically unpainted masonry building surfaces is typically discouraged as it can trap moisture and lead to deterioration. So if you know, those two elements are in our policy, and you know, they come to bear on this proposal, but you know, I do acknowledge that we are in a slightly different situation here where we have a proposal or a project that's imminent that would be negatively impacting this wall anyways.
One thing to note, in the lower portion of the photo where that little head house doorway is and so forth, to the right of that, there's some parging that was there that the property owner was in the process of removing. That's why so much of this facade is distressed. He was taking down some of this parging that was a smooth surface applied to the brick. So the brick has been exposed probably for a handful of years, if that at all.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I guess my one, you know, because I went out to the wall today just to get a closer look at it, and you know, particularly the area of where kind of the whitish masonry is within the silhouette of the old church. There are major gaps in the masonry. There are missing bricks. There's lots of open mortar joints there. There appear to be some loose bricks that could potentially be hazards. And this is a wall that's definitely open to the elements. And even with the application of a paint surface, it's a high likelihood that water is going to be able to get behind that surface and potentially lead to deterioration of the painted mural. So I guess in relation to that, and kind of following up on LC's comment, I just wanted to clarify, is there any proposed repairs to the wall proposed to close up open mortar joints or secure loose bricks, or are we just dealing with a situation where the artist is going to deal with the wall as is and not do anything to stabilize the existing material?
Go ahead, Charlotte.
I can speak to this. To my knowledge, no repairs were specifically planned for this wall, given the state that it's in, given plans for that lot that intend to go through at some point, and given an artist who has worked with these types of walls before internationally. There are elements of what we would do in the scan as we're prepping the wall for him, as we use a primer. Typically, we would use, I think, a Loxton masonry concrete primer on this to really create like adhesion. But it was not our intention to repoint a wall that, as you mentioned, also may not be there in a year or might not be exposed, but rather to hopefully be able to improve the integrity of that wall with the primer and the paint combined.
Any other questions?
Just speak to that from
Oh,
past
sure.
experiences with this. We believe we've preserved walls in Lynn that were in similar shape through priming and painting, where it solidified in some cases the placement of that brick. You know, it would have eroded further had it been not primed and painted.
Yep.
I guess I still am a little bit concerned, though, you know, given the crumbling state of the materials on that wall. You know, if there are no repairs being proposed, I'm a little concerned that, you know, with the introduction of a mural to that facade, it's going to draw a lot of people to this site, and people will likely want to come up close to it and take shots of it from below, putting them in a position where they could be, any material falling off, could create a safety hazard. So I raise that as a concern for you to consider.
Mhm.
I mean,
Well-
technically, is the public allowed onto that site, the parking lot?
It's private property, and it's actually not technically a parking lot for the restaurant, but they use it as such.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. I think at some point, whether there's a mural there or not, the owner is going to need to address repairs sooner than later. Whether they build a structure attached to it and totally redo the wall that way, or soon enough before it becomes a big safety hazard, should have to do some repairs if the new building is not going through. So something will have to be done sooner than later.
Right.
And the painting will probably hold it together for a little bit longer, but I think that's the owner's responsibility to that particular building.
Mhm.
If it's leaning towards the unsafe state, even though it's on private property, it's not fenced.
Yeah, I think the integrity of that wall needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
From a public safety standpoint, if nothing else, oh, I'm sorry.
That's what I'm saying.
The integrity of the wall has to be addressed, primarily, I guess, from a public safety standpoint, what Jeff has said. It's got to be structurally sound, I think, before you can put anything up there. I love the location, I think we all do, but boy, it doesn't look particularly solid. That's all.
I agree with the comments of the historic board, but I don't think that's in the scope of what we're reviewing tonight. And I think it is private property, and I do think the painting, to what Elsie said, it might actually help preserve some of the falling brick. I don't have an issue with the mural here. I think it would really improve this corner. And I also think because we voted for an infill development here, that's why, it used to be a parking lot, that's why it's gravel now, because they actually received a demo and foundation permit. And then there was an issue with the contractor that, I understand the concern about, unpainted brick and the roof line, but we sort of already determined that that wasn't important to preserve because we approved infill. So I'm comfortable with painting, and maybe it's something either the administrator or other planning staff could work, or the building department staff could work with the property owner about making sure that if it becomes a destination for tourists, that there is a protective, safe area for them to view from.
Appreciate that.
That's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I think in this case, given the imminent redevelopment of the site and the board's previous approval of this addition, in this particular case, I think that offsets the language in our policy that talks about painting unfinished masonry and obscuring the shadow lines of adjacent buildings. In a different scenario, I would object to that, but I think we have a specific circumstance here that I think comes into play that we should consider.
Yeah, I think overall, the issues about the unpainted brick aside, this is an ideal spot because what we're looking at is not historic, and it's jarringly not historic. And if something is going to be jarringly not historic, it might as well be beautiful and not ugly. So to me, this is a great candidate that really fits within our policy.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments from the board? Questions for the applicant? Well, with that, I'll entertain a motion. Someone wants to?
I move to approve this location, subject to review with the case office and approval of the Lowell Historic Board Administrator. And should the applicant and the Lowell Historic Board Administrator not come to a resolution, they come to the board.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have consensus. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, that concludes the public hearing portion of our agenda. We'll now move on to old business. First item is DLHD-2202, 61 Broadway Street, an application for a historic permit in the downtown Lowell Historic District by the Hellenic American Academy, and relief from the district design review standards for installation of a digital messaging sign pursuant to the Lowell Historic District Act. This is an agenda item being continued from our August 9th, 2021 hearing. And I'll also point out that board member Troy DePisa was not in attendance at the August 9th hearing, but he has signed an affidavit stating that he has reviewed the hearing record from that meeting and has reviewed the application, and as such is able to comment on and vote upon this application. That's for you, Steve. Would the applicant wish to present your revised application to us or expanded upon it?
Mr. Chairman, my name is Attorney Greg Curtis, members of the board. We were here back on August 9th regarding the Hellenic American Academy and regards to a change in the sign that is currently out in the front. We had the representative from Barlow Sign at the time, and what we're looking for is to basically seek a waiver under section 4.51 of the ordinance to allow the LED sign to replace the lower section of the existing sign. That sign size is 3 by 6 feet. At the time, I think the board had some concerns about seeing other graphics that could be presented, what the sign would look like, and I know that Barlow Sign hopefully sent those down maybe last week, and hopefully everybody had a chance to look at that. I have copies if you need to review that. So really what we're looking to do is keep the integrity of that existing sign. We're not changing the sign size. We're just looking to modernize and give the school the ability to reach out to students. We also use that school and the cultural center, which is attached to it, for functions. And on a limited basis, we would be advertising for the school, for the cultural center, for functions that go on. We have a lot of functions that we do with the Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Church, which is basically the owner and caretaker of the Hellenic American Academy. We feel, as the board wrote in their memo, that, this is a building that was constructed in 1959. It's a contemporary building. We don't think we're deviating from the scope of what the building is, and also the cultural center that was put up in 1985. That building also has a contemporary character. That area is mostly, we do have the residences across, which is the old Giant store that has residents. And then you have basically the Macheras Service Mart, which is the other abutting neighbor across the street. So we feel it's imperative. We're trying to save and keep this school going. This has been a battle for us because we basically fundraise, we look for benefactors, we're doing whatever we can to keep this school going. It's been there for 100 years. We're good, solid community people that have been in the Acre area. My father grew up at 340 Market Street. We're talking about the whole area and how gentrified it is now, and it's gone from different nationalities, whether it was Irish, Greek, Italian, Central American. I have apartments over there that are Brazilians and Colombians. So it's an ongoing process, but we feel that the Hellenic American Academy will be there for a long time. We're planning on improving the building in the future, which will probably be coming back to the board for things like windows and different items that we're looking to do improvements on the building. And then we're also looking to do improvements in the area of the Holy Trinity Church, along with St. Patrick's and the Ecumenical Center, which is the pathway that crosses between the two. We're looking to do lighting, which I'm sure will be something that the board will look at. But getting back to the plan at hand, we're looking to hopefully improve the school, improve the sign. We're going from an antiquated, old-type sign that you put the stickers on. Wasn't very good for advertising anything. We have people that work in the school that don't want to go outside in the bad weather to change the letters on the sign. And I think in the course of the time, we're just improving it tremendously. We're not looking to do any type of animation. I think we talked last time at the meeting that we're looking for 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. as a time frame. We're looking to keep it more than likely just a black background, possibly maybe at some point sometimes a blue background, and lettering. There may be, there's no animation, there's no flashing, there's no normal things that you would see on a sign that would be used for advertising or sales. This is going to be very tasteful. We're spending a lot of money to put this sign together, and I hope the board will support it. I'll open it up for questions from the board.
Thank you. And we appreciate you providing the additional graphics showing the types of messaging that you might be using for this sign, showing the different types of colored backgrounds and graphics. This is very helpful for us to get a better sense of what the visual will be for what you're proposing. So thank you for that. One question I had, I've been by the site a few times and noticed that you have a number of temporary banners on the building and on the fencing. Would the construction of this new digital sign that enhances your messaging capacities, would that enable you to not have to have those banners anymore?
We're going to need the banners. Sometimes we may have a banner if we have, say, the Greek festival for a weekend. We may put a banner up as we do put the street signs around. But this is going to give us a lot more flexibility as to what's going on. I don't think we're going to need any type of permanent type banners that have been hanging there for a long period of time. It's not going to be necessary, and I think it's going to clean up the fencing area. We're even looking at some point to do something with the fencing that's around the building. So it's an ongoing project, but no, I don't think we're going to be using those type of banners in the future.
Okay. Yeah, I think the ability to have fewer banners over the course of the year, I think would be a major improvement for the site. So thanks for clarifying that.
I agree.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm assuming that you've read the memo from Steve. And so you touched on 2 of the conditions and then obviously you agreed to the temporary banners. I just wanted to clarify that you're open to the rate of message change to be 30 seconds to a minute, and that the intensity of illumination needs to be established and are limited with the board reserving our right to revisit the illumination post-installation. Are you comfortable with those 2?
Yeah, I think the 30 seconds to a minute is fine. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, honestly, I don't even think we'll be using it that often for a change. But as you see the billboards you see on the highways, they change every 10 to 15 seconds or 10 seconds. So no, we're not looking to that. Most of the time, this is going to have maybe a sign put on or a message put on that will stay there all day. So yes, we may change it if there's a function coming up at night, but no, I think we'll be fine with that regard. But I think we'd like to try to at least have a couple of backgrounds, one being the black would be the prominent, and possibly sometimes being the blue, being the Hellenic, being Greek, being blue color. I think it wouldn't be a bad thing to have blue maybe with white lettering, and most of the time it's going to be a black background with lettering that would contrast that.
Thank you, Attorney Curtis. I think as long as the applicant's amenable to the conditions talked about, I don't have an issue with the sign. It's a contemporary building, and I just don't have an issue with it, as long as with these conditions.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Christine. Any other board members wish to comment or ask questions?
Yeah, I just would like to clarification. So we're going still, I know we talked about this last time with light colors on the dark background you just talked about. I'm reading some things from our ordinance. Yeah, any illumination, so we're doing non-flashing, glareless, and obviously we're not doing non-moving. That would be the variance that you're looking for. And if I recall, so the letters would like fade out? Is that how they're moving? They fade out?
I think the gentleman from Barlow Sign indicated that that's how they'll go. They're not
Yeah.
gonna come across the screen where they come and they go across the screen. It's just gonna fade in, fade out. And I think the majority of the time, you're gonna have a black background with the white lettering. And then we might have periods of time that we'll have a blue background with possibly white lettering.
Okay. Okay, the blue, but for the color. And then also it states, let's see, no promotional or advertising, that type of thing. So basically you're advertising just like your events are rolling and whatever events that are associated with your organization. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We're gonna
Okay.
we do have things at the Cultural Center, events that happen there, and we will be maybe putting that up, spaghetti dinner, enroll now, as we see on some of these.
Yeah.
Welcome back students, parent-teacher conference day, or a lot of different things. But it's all going to be geared towards the school
Okay.
or towards the Cultural Center, and it's not going to be used for any type of advertising for sales or that type of thing. We're having a drive-through sale this week of food and Greek pastries, and we may end up, on a day like that, we're putting it up on the board saying, Saturday, the 18th, we're having a food drive, and so it's going to be pretty straightforward. We're not going to have a lot of changes, and I don't think it will be a detriment to the area, and I know it's a sensitive area, and the board has been, struggling with this, and it's probably going to come up again in the future with other people, but it's what we have to go to at this point. We don't really have the ability to use that sign that's there, and it's actually dangerous. That sign has a big piece of plexiglass that has to be lifted up. The letters have to be removed. It's faded, and the people that work at the school don't even want to deal with it at this point.
So we also talked about the font and what's written. Lettering should be of traditional block, curvilinear style. So like typically a couple of types of fonts. So it looks like in your examples that you put out, you have a couple here that are limited.
Right, the one that indicates example 1, then you have example 2 that has the welcome back, a little bit different lettering with the picture of the apple with the books. Hellenic American Academy benefit auction. That's the type of lettering. We're not looking to do anything that's going to be different lettering that is looking to attract attention. We're just trying to get the word out there on certain things that are happening with the school. And basically, again, I think most of the time you're going to see everything on a black background, possibly a blue.
Okay. And then, like as Christine said, that you're open for review after things, or further comment after things move, if they move forward.
Sure, when we have this completed, we're happy to get the input from the board. If they see things that are happening that they have a concern about, we're happy to address them. The nice thing with this LED board is it can be changed at any time. It can be adjusted, and colors, brightness. I think the gentleman talked about the fact that it kind of adjusts its light sensitivity basically
Right.
based on the sunlight. On bright sunny day, it's going to be a little brighter. On a cloudy day, it's a little more subdued.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Aurora, did you have a comment to make?
Yeah, I'm really sensitive to that this is an important element of the city and that we really care about maintaining the Hellenic Academy where it is. I remain really uncomfortable with us moving into this area of regulation. It's just a whole realm of things that I would have preferred to have a hard no on. I think I can make peace with that we're saying only a very contemporary building in a spot that doesn't have a lot of historic cohesion. But I really don't enjoy the idea of having to regulate this going forward. I feel like it might be something that we would want to come up with a policy about, as much as we just spent a long time coming up with a mural policy. I think we're saying like, well, this isn't that big, you know, this has this set of colors, that's okay. I think if we're gonna make those kind of judgment calls, I would love to see us have some policy, because we should never be making calls based on like the personality of an appeal. We want to have a set of rules that we're clearly following. And you're making such a compelling case, and I just want to make sure that we have a set of rules that we're sticking to that are really clear to us, and that aren't about how much a particular appeal draws on our heartstrings, because I don't want to see us down the line ending up approving something based on precedent that we set that's slippery. So that would be my comment. I do want to add too that I really appreciate your patience in waiting so long to speak, and in coming back again. I really appreciate the amount of effort, and I completely understand how much you want this, and how passionately you feel about making sure that the community is aware of what's going on there.
I will just say for the board, I think Steve's comments might be a good start to the policy. I think he outlines why this is already a precedent that we've set
Right.
for contemporary nature of the building.
Yeah, I'm ready to support it, particularly with the
I think,
contingencies.
I think it gives you a really neat way to, you know, promote the events that you're doing, and it looks great. I'm all in favor for it, personally. I think, reading Steve's notes, we need to vote on a waiver
That's correct. There's,
before we can
procedurally, we
vote
have
on actual.
that's correct. We have two
project.
votes we would need to make. A vote to
Okay.
approve the waiver, and then a vote to approve the.
All right, well, I'm prepared to do that now.
Okay. Any other comments before we do that? Okay.
Yeah. You know, I think I hear what Aurora's saying, and it's, you know, I've been mulling over this myself. But it is our right to give a variance to it, and we do need to remember that this is a case by case, and every case is specific. So, and I was looking at this, for me, something that's more contemporary, sort of on the edge of things, given that they're willing to adhere to a lot of what's been written as our guideline here, with the exception of, you know, something that's actually moving. I'm okay with. And as I said, perhaps other things will come forward, but this one, it'd have to be a number of things leaning towards a variance for me. And this one comes a little closer to that. So, case by case.
Thanks,
That's
Elsie.
all.
Yeah, I think, as you've probably seen, this has been a challenge for us as a board, given that this is a technology we haven't dealt with before in terms of reviewing for the district. So we're standing on new ground in some ways, and we're struggling to find ways to see how our standards apply to a proposal like this. But we definitely appreciate the detailed information that you've given us. And the flexibility that you've shown has made this process a lot easier for us. And we appreciate your willingness to consider, not relying on the banners for communicating in the future, and for starting out with a very conservative approach to these graphics in terms of the dark backgrounds and limited graphics and so on. So, and again, I I do share some of your concerns or about precedent, but I think given the contemporary nature of the site and the building and being on the edge of the district, we have an applicant that has a high level of messaging needs. That's probably more so than other potential applicants. I think there are a number of mitigating factors in this that, for me, I think I'm okay with issuing a waiver in this particular instance. But I do like the idea of maybe putting together a policy for this type of technology, because I think we'll probably be seeing more of this in the future.
I agree.
We're always willing to work with the board, and this may be a great kind of test bed to see how things go in the future.
Indeed.
What a
Mhm.
good partner we are with the board and how good it looks, and maybe it can be used in the future to help guide other potential signs of this nature.
Right. And thank you for that, yep. Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to issue the waiver.
I'll second the motion.
Do we need any specific language? for that?
Specifically, it's a waiver of 4.51 in the standards
Yeah,
regarding,
there's recommended motion here.
4.5.
Okay, I make a motion to vote in favor of issuing a waiver of sections 4.451 regarding non-moving illumination.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, waiver passes.
That was 8.
All right, and then we'll need a motion regarding the actual proposal itself. And you mentioned a number of contingencies, Christine, in your comments, and there are some that are written up in the meeting notes that we could follow.
Well, it would be the,
So make a motion to approve the sign under section 6.1 with the the 4 bulleted conditions that are in the memo,
Right.
plus the removal of temporary banners.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just, that's I think that's everything.
Okay.
Okay, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much.
Good.
Again, thank you for your patience.
Nice job.
Okay, that concludes our old business. We now have on the agenda approval of the minutes of August 9th, 2021. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes, and does anyone have any comments or edits or concerns to bring up? Good night, everybody. Thank you. Good night.
Take care.
I'll make a motion to approve the August 9th minutes.
All in
I
favor?
second.
Aye.
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 And just as a quick comment on that, Steve, I appreciate you providing the level of detail that you did in the minutes
Yeah, that was,
to reflect the discussion. I think that for future reference, having that documented is going to be very helpful.
wait to see the ones of this meeting.
Yeah. We set a new standard for you. All right, other business. Steve, you want to mention anything in particular of the items?
People are so inclined, this could be included for the record. Starting to make some visits to a few folks around, and so far so good on enforcement. Again, I want to reiterate, I'm sorry.
I want to reiterate on the enforcement is that, eyes and ears, all of you, when you're out and about, if you see something, shoot me an email. It's something, I got, one board member, as I noted, saw a piece of broken storefront glass, and we dealt with that pretty easily. Another person saw a neon lit sign. It's kind of a cat and mouse game at this point with the couple businesses. But, it's good when you notice something, because sometimes it's off hours. I mean, sometimes it's at night. I've been down here sometimes in early evening, and like, where did that come from? It's like a different town sometimes. So it's really good to, if you see something, say something, I guess, as they say, Again, the rest of it is just informative under the administrator's report. I do want to note that I did get the application in for the CPA funds for the stained glass restoration of City Hall. It's about $470,000. Think of that in your deliberations. What I'm probably going to do, if it actually does pass to the next step where where the project's invited for a full application before the CPC, I'm going to go back to the stained glass company and strongly ask for a phased approach. You know, can you please give us numbers of the most critical so we can whittle some of that down so that, I mean, realistically, it's a multi-phase project in my mind. So what's the most critical out the gate? So that's in, and again, other than that, it's just informational.
I just have one comment and one question. I look forward to reading the violation process, because I think the more we can empower things to happen at the staff level to keep things moving, you guys are on the street, we meet once a month, is really great, and I think that would be a great public discussion so that there's, you know, people know what's coming and it's not a surprise to anybody. And then my question is, the CPA application, do you apply as an administrator or do you apply on behalf of the board? And if you apply on behalf of the board, I just want to formally abstain from that application since I'm on the CPA.
I applied as City of Lowell.
Okay, then it's a non-issue.
It didn't say historic board. It just said City of Lowell, and I'm only on there as project overseer, manager, whatever. That's it. Yeah, I've kept it simple, knowing that there's.
Right. Great. Thank you, Steve.
I just have a quick comment about the sign that we just approved, and, you know, looking at further policy or further guidance. Does anyone have any quick notes in their head on that? Like what they would put in something like that? You know, like contemporary, for example, if the building is contemporary, or.
Elsie, one of the things I was working on as I was crafting the notes for all of you for the past two meetings was keeping a side set of notes on these sorts of signs. And, you know, I won't say it's a complete draft policy, but there's the bones of something that's there. And also talking to the sign company as well, to, you know, when we did the awning policy years and years ago, we reached out, myself, Chuck Parrott at the National Park, with awning companies locally to make sure we had the terminology right, the lingo right, okay?
Right.
So that it
Yeah.
wasn't just developed in a vacuum. So that would be the same thing with this, you know, reaching out to, you know, the sign company who's representing the Hellenic and a few others that are around, you know, the bigger sign shops that do these sorts of installations, because you want any policy to accurately reflect industry terminology and standards and so forth, in my mind at least.
One of the most difficult things in the process is we didn't know that. We didn't know the whole science of it. And so you're like, okay, well, what does it do? And I think there was one explanation. And then when the actual guy that programs the sign got up, he had a whole lot more information that he could share with us. So I guess, you know, that would definitely help. Because I certainly don't want to see a bunch of flashy things, you know, downtown, but I think there's a way that you can do it that would subdue. Yeah, I was just curious if anyone had thoughts on.
Yeah, no, I think, Steve, the language you put into the meeting notes was really helpful, and I think could serve as a really good basis for that. I think one of the challenging elements of this type of technology, though, is, as they acknowledged at the hearing last month, is that they can't provide us a video or a representation of how it looks because of just the way it operates. So it's hard to get a mock-up done for these kinds of things to be able to assess them in advance. So that is one challenge that we're going to have to face moving forward, is, you know, how do we get the best representation of how this will actually look before we actually approve it.
I mean, I think one of the things that is important to note is with any internal illumination, it's primarily for the contemporary-ish buildings.
Yep.
So that, as I noted in the advanced notes, you're not going to have a proliferation. It's a case by case. And I think that we learned a lot the last 2 meetings, I think, about these, and I've learned more about it, and again, that's a lot of the notes I have on these. I think you'll see a draft at some point in the near future. I mean, there's not another one of these on the radar right now, I can tell you that. No one's made any other inquiry on this, but I think it's something that we'd rather get ahead of, so that we're not, I think everyone did a great job on this one. I think this was really good, but we want to get ahead of it, I think, in case there are more proposals.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree, because I just want to, if we don't do a policy, we will be having the same vote with the same criteria in the Hamilton Canal Innovation District, and we should think about it now before there's development that may come for a sign.
Right.
Yeah, one thing I want to add, it seemed like we were struggling with whether to consider the benevolent nature of this organization versus a commercial organization. I think we should clarify whether that's part of our policy or whether that was just an argument they were bringing that we weren't necessarily responding to. Because, I see that as something that we should clarify, whether a nonprofit organization gets different consideration than a business.
No, I didn't consider it that way.
Yeah, I was about to say, we probably shouldn't make that distinction, but they're going to make the argument that they think is best.
Right, yeah, they're always gonna make that argument. But I don't really see a difference between that or anybody else. Certain things move me that way.
Unless there's any other business or issues that a board member wants to bring up, Elsie?
No, I moved to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Elsie, for patching in.
Yep. I'll be back in person next time.
I can't wait to see these murals.
Oh, really, huh?